It's Saturday, March 24th, and welcome to my shop. You'll probably be hearing a noise in the background here today as I'm filming, and that's because it's raining outside. It's not a very nice day, and I wouldn't be too concerned about that, except at 1 o'clock today, I have to go and rescue an old 1968 Mercedes, and it's not running, so we have to tow it back to the shop. So I've got a lot to do today. I've got Fritz here ready for a valve adjustment, but I've got to get the adjustment done right now so that I can drive this car out, because when we bring this car back, we're going to roll it in here and do a quick restoration. You're going to get a kick out of that one. You're probably wondering why I'm taking so long to finish Fritz anyway. I know some of you are saying, well, you've been working on this thing for months. Well, you have to remember, this isn't the only thing I'm working on, and if you've been following my videos, you'll see I've got a little project going on up in the mountains. This past week I was up there working on the roof, trying to do some siding, but it's been such bad weather up there. So now that the weather's getting better, I'm going to be spending quite a bit more time up in the mountain. So I'm going to bring my helper in now, and we're going to do this valve adjustment, and we're going to do it very quickly. It's nice when you see a 28-year-old engine so clean on the inside. So in approaching a valve adjustment on these M110 six-cylinder engines, the first thing you have to do is pull out all the rocker arm spring clips. If you don't pull these clips out, you won't get accurate measurements with the feeler gauge. There's another reason why I pull all the clips out, and I will explain that to you shortly. I'll adjust this one here. That's an intake, and over here I've got one sticking up that's an exhaust, and as soon as I finish, I will release the clip. That will help me keep track of which valves I've adjusted. So I'll just keep turning the engine over. I can either turn it over with a socket. I'm going to use a remote starter switch, but I'm going to turn the engine over until I've got all these adjusted and all the clips are back in place. The first thing I do when I start the adjustment on a particular valve is to first see what the clearance is, because I need to find out whether I need to loosen or tighten, if you understand what I mean. So let's stick a 3 in there and see if it goes. 3 won't go? Okay, so that means we're shooting for 4 thousandths. We're too tight, so we're going to have to loosen this up. Let me get my wrench underneath. Okay, stick the 4 in there, and I'm going to move it until you just can put it in. Keep trying. Okay, is it dragging? Can you feel it drag, or should I bring it out a little bit?
Yeah, it's dragging.
Okay, good. That one's done. Now, you saw how quick that goes when you have a helper, because you don't have to put the wrench down and get the feeler gauge. Now I'll go ahead and put the clip on, and I'll move on to the next one. Anytime you're doing a job like this on your own Mercedes engine, you want to get the factory specifications or the factory manual. A lot of this information is available online. If you just start Googling, you will eventually find it. This tells me all the settings and the procedures, you know, about removing clips and everything. It's always important to refer to the factory information when you're doing jobs like this. Now I've hooked up the remote starter switch down here to the wire going directly to the starter motor, and that's bypassing the fuel pump. I don't want raw fuel pumping into the engine, so I'm just going to click it now until I bring a couple more cam lobes up and move on to the next adjustment. A little bit more. Okay, we got 2 up, and we will continue with the next 2 valves. So these back ones are quite a reach here. I've got this intake cam lobe sticking up, so I'm going to get the wrench on it. But before I do that, let's go ahead and check. Let's see where it's at now. See if the 3 goes. Okay, let's try the 4. Oh, that's so close. So I'm only going to have to adjust this just a very small amount. Okay, put the 4 in there. Okay, there it is. That's it. That one's finished. Let's go ahead and put the clip on. I usually use a soft face hammer to tap that clip into place. You don't want to be banging around in here with any metal. That's the way. Okay, clip's on. That one's done. Well, we're all done with that job. It only took about 15 minutes. You know, you don't need a helper. You don't need 2 feeler gauges. I highly recommend you learn to use a remote starter switch. If you don't, if you use the starter switch inside the car, make sure you disable the fuel pump and that you disable the distributor, because you don't want the engine starting, all right? So that just speeds the job up so you don't have to double handle everything. You can see you could do it on your own if you wanted to. So now we're going to clean up the gasket surfaces, get this all cleaned up. I'm going to get a lint-free towel and wipe the cams down, double check, make sure there's no dirt or anything else got left inside there, and then we're going to reinstall the valve cover and get this thing ready to fire up. This afternoon I'm loading up to go save another one. That's right, we're going to go try to rescue another old Benz. And what better car to do it in than my C240 wagon. This is an ideal car. Not for towing the car, but for going to get it. We're going to drive this back. It's an old 300D, and I'm getting my kit ready. This is my go to get the car kit, all right? You see I've got a spare tire. I always take a spare tire along and a tow strap. You know, always take a tow rope. We don't know if we're going to be able to make it back to Bellingham. And look what else I've got. I've got coolant. I've got engine oil. I've got transmission fluid. Gloves. We've got paper towels. We've got, this is motor oil saver for an oil burner, and we've got some high test fuel additive in case they've got old diesel fuel in the engine. I've got a new voltage regulator. I've got fuel filters, and of course I'm taking wipers because it's predicted to rain tonight, and I don't like driving these old cars with bad wipers. So along with this, I'm going to load up some tools. We're going to get Jerson in here shortly. We're going to hit the road and head south towards Seattle to go try to rescue another one. So our first stop here is to take a look at a 560 SEC that just blew a spark plug out of the engine. So let's take a quick walk around and see if this one's worth saving. It's going to need some paint work on the hood. We've got a broken windshield and some issues with the interior with the dried leather. Hey. So what do you think? Is it worth saving? Okay, Jerson, we're heading to go look at a 300D, right?
Yes, let's go for it now.
All right, let's roll. So maybe that'll stick. But this is the one we're going to drive home tonight, and it's looking okay. He tells me that we won't have any problem at all. The odometer has been broken for a number of years, so we don't actually know how many miles are on this engine, but we're going to go ahead and give it a quick look over before we hit the road. So what do you think, Jerson? You're going to be driving this. Why don't you hop in the seat, see how the seat feels for you? Look, seat actually looks pretty good. How do the springs feel? We need to put a seat spring kit in there before we hit?
Looks pretty good.
It looks pretty good. All right. So this one's not bad. This one we're going to take home tonight. And you walk around it, you know, and the paint's good. There's no paint peeling. But it's one of those old diesels that's well worth saving. And the interior's not too bad in here. It does have some cracks in the dash, but that's kind of common, especially with blue interior. I put my hand on this thing and it's talking to me right here. It's talking to me. It's telling me, Jerson, we're going to make it. He doesn't look that convinced. So here we go. Another adventure. We'll report back and let you know whether we successfully make it back to Bellingham. But I have a feeling here we're not going to have any problem with this little sweetheart. Oh, I think I hear it. The typical sound of that old OM 617 diesel engine. Here comes the old gal. This is a 1980 300D, folks. It made it all the way from North Seattle. Hey, welcome, guys. You beat the odds.
Yay!
Hey!
Welcome to a new home.
Well, it's on the road again. You know, they say when it rains, it pours. So is the case in the Pacific Northwest. And so is the case when finding and rescuing old Mercedes. Let's go get it.
Let's go get another one.
Okay, so here it is. Been sitting in the garage here for over 40 years. And without an engine and transmission, it's not going to be very difficult to get it up on that tow dolly. And you can see we got lots of bodies to help today. Getting the car loaded up is a snap, but getting all these parts in the car and in the truck are going to be a little challenging. Let's see if we can pull this off on one trip. The only way we're going to get all this home in one load is to put this thing back together a little bit. So we're putting the fenders and hood on, and we went ahead and put the seats in. That's going to help with a lot of space. These seats are in excellent condition. And we'll go ahead and load this up with boxes, and then we'll have to finish filling up the back of the truck. You can see the car was extensively disassembled. Okay, we're getting close. You can see we've tied the fenders in place, and we've tied the hood to the core support, so we're not taking any chances at all that anything will come off this Mercedes while we're towing it. And the inside is starting to fill up. Look at all these tubbies. We got tubbies in the truck, and a cat somehow decided to come along for the ride. We've got all the trim and the fragile stuff in the trunk, so that's probably enough. We don't want any damage there. Okay, that's secure. And you can see we've got the inside loaded up. That's about as much as we want to put inside the car. Okay, it's loaded up and we're ready to roll back to the farm. You know how I feel about detailing. Well, the old gal just came in today, and anytime I get a car, particularly one that has faded paint, one of the first things I just love to do is get my acrylic works and get out on the paint and see just how well it's going to restore. This is going to be really interesting. I think this paint job is going to really come back to life. Let me show you why. As a general rule, these older solid-based colors are much easier to restore than metallics. Metallics, you get a lot of, zebra striping and fading in certain areas, and it's hard to get to really buff out. But these solid colors, you can go after them if they haven't been exposed too long to sunlight. They don't have any crazing or any delamination. This one is a perfect candidate. So let's just take this area right here. And let's see if you can see in the video why I'm excited about restoring this particular paint job. See, I'm already starting to pull off some of the dead oxidized paint, and I'm not even using any rubbing compound. I don't use rubbing compound if I don't have to. We'll have to see whether this is going to require rubbing compound. But let's polish this out. And look at that. See if we can get the camera in any better so you can see the difference. This is the old faded paint. Here's the paint I just polished with acrylic works. So you can see we're going to get some really nice shine on the old gal. So 2 rescues in 2 days. That's a little unusual for even me, but I'm sure some of you are thinking, well, Kent, why are you trying to rescue this car? You've watched my other videos. I've talked about what you don't want to bring home. You don't want to bring home an old Mercedes in pieces because it turns out to be just way too much work. And I don't even have an engine or a transmission. So this is kind of a long story. I'm just going to briefly tell you why I brought this home. It's a 1968 280S. It's a 108 chassis. It's very similar to my daughter's car, Mary Jane. But I knew the owner in high school. He was an old hot rodder back in the 60s. And he's had this car since 1972, and it ended up having an engine problem, and the last it was registered was 1978, and it's been sitting in his garage, and he recently passed away. And his family did not want this car to go to the crusher. They really didn't. With how long they had owned it, he had pulled the engine out. He was going to put a transplant, a newer model engine in it, but he just took everything apart. You saw earlier, we've got boxes and tubs and all kinds of things. So this is going to have to find a very special owner, and that's what I intend to do. I'm not going to fix the car. I don't have any intention to restore it, but I do want to go through the parts, get it all together, and hopefully over the next couple months, I can find someone out there, somewhere in the US, that would love to have a old 108, rust-free, super straight body, very nice interior, and maybe they even have one that's all rusty with a good engine and transmission. In that case, it wouldn't be such a, mind-boggling restoration project. But I wanted to explain that so you know why I brought this one home today. Now you can see right away it's turned out to be a beautiful day. It's coming up on 5 o'clock. I lost my helpers. I still haven't even unloaded this thing from the tow dolly. And what am I going to do with all this box? You know, I was going to push it up in the shop because I got old Fritz ready to move out. But that isn't going to happen either. So once again, it was a real fun Saturday here at the shop, and I hope all of you have a great week, and we'll see you next Saturday.